honestly don't know if this is going to work. My goal is to press my clay and graphite in here and then let it dry, and then press some more and let it dry until it is completely flat, and then I will glue the other piece on top. The issue with anything with clay in it is that clay shrinks, so I don't know if you've ever had a makeup pencil, an old makeup pencil, but when they dry out and shrink, this is what happens. So that is not what I want to have happen to my pencil. So here goes nothing. If I let this dry too much, it cracks. So we're just gonna kind of squish it in here. I've got some green tape on it so it can, so I can glue it without having all the graphite mess up with the glue. So we're just gonna squish this in here and then press it. Maybe. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna let this dry and shrink and then put some more of this in there. So I let this dry overnight. You can see it actually did crack and I had to patch it, which is what happens when you've got clay in anything, because clay shrinks. So I'm gonna very carefully peel the tape off. I put tape down so that I could glue this and wouldn't have to deal with trying to clean the graphite and clay off of that. All right, so the plan is to sandwich that in between and then glue it and then shave this down so it's somewhat usable as a pencil. Thinking about it, I probably should add a little extra that has no clay in it on the end so that I've still got a usable thing when I get down to this part. The other thing I did yesterday was I made another little, this is my pigment stick mold, and I made another little mold specifically for a tiny little square of pigment, which is this clay that I have that is it's the clay that has the most shrinkage of all of my foraged clays, and it makes a really nice crayon-like line that doesn't really smear, but it's also water soluble. So it makes a nice, it's a nice sketching tool for underneath a watercolor painting because the lines can kind of disappear. So it would be nice to have this in a slightly thinner form. So I thought if I was able to, I got it pretty straight, encapsulate this somehow by gluing pieces of wood around it, then I'd be able to do the same thing as I'm doing with this. So onward. I don't know, my husband asked me why I was doing this. It's not really, I mean, it's taking forever. But you know, you do these kinds of things because you want to see if you can. So that's the reason. So this one is dry. I just have to add some extra pieces here. And then I got this one encased. Once it's dry, I'll add an extra piece on top. So the red clay stick encased in wood. It only goes about part way up, and then the rest of it will just be handle. So it's drying, and then this one, I put some extra wood on the end. The graphite goes to about here. And I am just carving it down. I don't know if this is going to work. And if I did this again, I would probably choose some better wood. These little sticks of wood carve really nicely, but this wood is several pieces together and it is much harder to carve. Okay, so I've just got the tiniest little bit of this exposed because I want to make sure it has support. A few more final, maybe, thoughts on these little pencil experiments I was working on yesterday. This is the graphite one that I posted about yesterday, and it actually turned out a lot better than I thought it would. It's actually pretty good. And then this is the one that I made out of my red ochre clay that has quite a bit of clay in it. And what I was going for was, these are supposed to be the same, was this hard stick that doesn't smear very much, is also, like all the clays, water soluble, and would make a really good sketching tool for underneath a watercolor. That is what this sample is supposed to be, but what you will find when you forage any soil is that you can go back to the same place, or you can even, use a similar, your same sample, and you can get slightly different results. So either I went a little bit farther over on the hill from this one, or I processed it a little bit differently. But this is what I ended up with, which is a much softer stick that smears a lot more. I mean, it's still water soluble. But since there's only a tiny little bit in this stick, it means it's going to wear down a lot faster if I draw with it than it would if it were like this. So, and this was quite a bit of work. So hopefully I can figure out how to make this one again. The other thing is the wood that I used. I need to use different wood if I'm going to do this again. The little craft sticks whittle really easily, but this piece is laminated, and between the glues and the wood grain going different directions, this was much harder to carve. So I thought I was done, but I will probably mess with this just a little bit more.